have come to believe that the uh, complete disruption of how information works in societies is eventually going to lead to a rethinking of all of our concepts of government.
But that's the
Uh,
exciting
this
part.
this will be generational. Now the Chinese are off; they're doing their own thing right now, but it is based on they have a strategy. They're trying to execute a plan on how to control information flow in the Chinese society for the benefit of the Chinese Communist Party, and they would say for the benefit and greater prosperity of China in general. That's what they're actually doing it. I don't know of anyone else who is doing that, and I don't know if you know, Jeff. But yeah, I
You
think
almost
this is.
need
Go
an
ahead.
authoritarian regime to do it, I think.
I hate hearing that. I mean, I'm not going to argue that point, but
Yeah.
I hate hearing that.
I
It's
think we dug our own grave when we made the news a for-profit department.
I'm sorry,
I
say
don't
that
know if you
again.
remember, I said we dug our own grave years and years ago when we made the news cycle or the
Right,
news department a
right,
for-profit department.
exactly. For profit, right.
Yeah, because prior to that, there was you could rely on the news. It wasn't like they were giving you stories for clicks, right? There were no clicks. Uh, they weren't selling ads. It was just you were just getting what professional journalists felt like was an accurate a description of events, right? And you trusted professional journalists, and they could be sued, and they had a code of ethics, and they
But they
had
also had
some.
their own they also had their own biases.
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I
You'll
mean they
never
had
get away from that.
their own filter.
Yeah. But what's happened since then it became for profit. And so then you were competing for views. And then so the more, the more wild and bloody and enticing the headlines were, the more views you were going to get, the more ads you were going to sell. And that really has continued, except now it's clicks, you know, and because anybody can be a journalist, quote unquote, not really a journalist, but anybody can be a purveyor of information.
Do your own research. Do your own research.
Yeah. Uh,
But
and
that
so,
shouldn't be discouraged. I mean, so that it's complex because do we want a world in which the government or the journalists or any particular group is sort of like, you should really go to the authorities to get your information. I mean, like, do we want that's basically an authoritarian system. Like, do we want
Well,
that?
that's
And
basically China.
yeah, exactly. And so
yeah,
I don't think we want that either. But I think that it's not, I guess I want to say, Jeffrey, I don't think I do think that the outsourcing or creating news as a for-profit industry was part of the problem, but it wouldn't have gone to the extreme that it has if it weren't for the addiction cycle of social media. And
I think AI could have a solution for this. It's possible, theoretically speaking, that if you had an AI that was ingesting real-time events and was fact checking at the same time. I mean, it could be done considering the speed at which some of these compute clusters operate today. Instead of focusing on trying to achieve AGI, make it more narrow and focus on fact checking and
but it's not
delivering and fact checking so quickly that it almost seems to be, you know, not really noticeable. And but of course, with our current system, it's all about um, views and money, and whereas there's no incentive to stick to try to do fact checking, and the people are not have not been, in our country at least, critical thinking is not taught in school.
But it's not, this
So
kind of drives me nuts because it's not just critical thinking. Like you can do really good critical thinking with false information that's given to, there's a blurb and a blab does this and a blurb does this. I mean, this is a classic behavioral test, right? So if a blurb does this and a blab does this, then what can a blurb do in this situation? These are not things that exist, but you use critical thinking to figure them out. So it's not just critical thinking. It's literally like there's so much information you don't know who to trust. It's a trust issue. And so even if you got an AI to fact check, you don't trust the fact checking. You don't trust the human fact checkers. You're going to trust the person who brings you your mail and correctly brings you your mail after, 6 weeks and hasn't failed, or the person who helps you with your dog. So like what we've ended up doing in this transition from the physical reality of life to the digital reality is we've lost trust because trust is based on physical experiences over time of something working out and surviving/thriving, right? So I don't think any of those solutions, critical thinking or AIs that fact check, more fact checking, that's a fantasy. The problem is trust.